It is the Anfield Wrap, Neil Atkinson with Rob Gutmann, with Kev Walsh and with John Gibbons to talk about Liverpool's fantastic 4-0 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers and the return of football supporters to Anfield, and a bit of chat about Fabinho and Wijnaldum's contract, and a look ahead to Midtjylland, the game coming up on Wednesday night, and to talk about lots of footballers we haven't seen play enough and what we think they might do in that one. But we will start off with what it was all about yesterday. It was the return of supporters to Anfield. And John, to me, it was a little bit reminiscent of the 4-0 against Palace at the start of lockdown football, but Liverpool just turned up and turned it on.
Yeah, the quote after was the Klopp said to them, I want this to be the best anyone has ever played in front of no fans. And I think he maybe said something similar about the best anyone's ever played in front of 2,000 people. That was the attitude they went into it, and they were great, and it was boss to see. You know, only Rob was there of the four of us. We weren't, but I was watching it, just buzzing off people being there and stuff like that, and I sort of got more emotional about the whole thing than I thought. I mean, it didn't help that they kept finding like these lovely old dears in the in the crowd and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, come on, not at Christmas. But yeah. But they obviously every time they showed someone, they were just sort of having a brilliant time, and you know, the players were obviously buzzing off it. You know, celebrating the goal sort of a little bit more because of, you know, having someone to celebrate in front to, and it's just a perfect night for Liverpool really all round. You know, people back in, it's a starters, and I wasn't there, but I feel one step closer to seeing them now because we've got people in, and it went well, and you know, more importantly than anything, because there is a league to win after all. You know, it was a great win against a good team. Wolves will take points off people this season. Beat City home and away last year, didn't they? But we steamrolled them really, and reminded ourselves and everyone else that we're the best team in the league by far.
They are the best team in the league by far, Rob. I mean, there's going to be a few more slightly sterner tests. I expected a little bit more from Wolves in general, but I think that Liverpool smothered them. They stopped them playing. We're going to talk about that central midfield too and their importance of it. But I felt it was the whole side. You got Mane pinning back Sadio, scaring the life out of him. You've got what's going on in the middle of the park. Jones again, contributing, playing ever so well. Nico Williams gets the early yellow and you worry about it, and then he makes it clear there's nothing to worry about. It was a performance of real control.
Yeah, and it's a strange season in strange times, and the funny thing about it is that we're not always allowed to see the best version of the best team in the world through things like Klopp has to rotate. So we'll talk about it with Midtjylland. So he's having to put out a compromised team. You know, you always got so many injuries. We've virtually got a League Cup squad out in a Champions League game, or even away at Brighton. It can be difficult. So it's only sort of in snatches that we're getting to see the best team in the world allowed to be the best team in the world, would be the total sum of its parts. I mean, sometimes it's managed that without being at full strength, like against Leicester the other week, and we weren't at full strength yesterday, but there was a lot of important components playing there. In a way, some of the big performances this season, I'm going to list Chelsea, Arsenal, Leicester, Atalanta even in the Champions League, and yesterday, they're all at least up there, if not better than we gave last season in becoming champions so relentlessly. I mean, I think last season, if I'm to pick the real highlight performances, which are on that sort of level where we scored the goals, we had the dominance, and it was total full spectrum dominance. I'm thinking of Leicester and maybe one or two others which are slipping my mind, maybe like that Palace game you talk about. So this season we are delivering those big, comprehensive performances more frequently, which is strange because we're not allowed to every week.
It's statement stuff, I think, Kev. That's one that I think will have resonated. I think it helps, weirdly, now playing after what feels like after everybody else. Yes, there's still Brighton and Southampton to play one another, but Liverpool playing after everyone else. I think that, you know, again, people will have hoped a little bit maybe they might just drop points there against Wolves, and Liverpool do the absolute opposite. Yeah,
we've absolutely tonked Wolves, and I think it's the game it reminded me of was the Leicester one on Boxing Day. I think Rob's right there, and I think if you think about this season, you talk about the games you just mentioned, Rob, like big victories, and you watch it and you go, fucking hell, I really enjoyed that. We were so good there. And we're only 2 VAR decisions in the final minute of games away from being 4 points clear at the top of the league, and everyone just going, oh my God, these are going to walk this year. Mm-hmm. The Everton game, and obviously last week against Brighton, there's an extra 4 points on the board. We're runaway leaders, as it would seem. We've just tonked a decent Wolves team, and I think already people would be saying, just give them the title now. Whereas as it is, we've got those couple of... We've dropped a few more points than last season, which makes it slightly more exciting. But I think overall, we've lost a lot of players through injury, but we're still a fantastic football team. And the good thing about the players we've lost through injury are all defenders, and we seem to be keeping clean sheets. So what we've had to do is adapt our game. But by adapting our game, we haven't gone, okay, we'll have to be more defensively and just nick games. We've defended with the ball better, basically. So we have more of the ball, and when they get the ball, they have it in areas that can't really hurt us.
The other thing about it, Rob, when you're saying about, you know, not getting to see them be the team that we'd love them to be all the time, I thought you actually saw the benefits of just a couple of extra days rest and a couple of extra days prep time. You know, I think that there was a few little nuanced things that they do. Salah, I think, starts a lot wider than normal, I think, to disrupt Wolves' shape, something Liverpool have thought about and worked on. But there's little bits and pieces in there, but also they just simply had 5 days between games. And while obviously there is the Midtjylland game to come, it's not one you're expecting, you know, any number of senior players to be going to. Yes, it's then pretty tight, but they get the little run before Christmas of Fulham, Spurs, and then Palace will be quite intense. But then they get another substantial break, and in amongst Christmas, it couldn't be any better spaced out. I'm beginning to feel as though, with that one little exception, the schedule's beginning to be kinder.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to put a value on getting the job done in the Champions League last week. As much we were fortunate to an extent with the result in the other game that got us over the line there. I think what helps Klopp and helps on so many levels is going into this game, getting some good news about injuries. Like Keita and Trent were ready. They'd been back in training. They were ready to play. We saw both of them actually in the course of the game. That enables the manager to make the correct selection decision. So instead of asking Curtis, Gini or Jordan to go again, knowing that they're in the red zone, he's able to properly analyse them. And actually, they went again because they were fresh. He'd looked at the 5 days and go, no, they're fresh. What I mean is he's making the correct decision rather than the forced decision, the risk-taking decision. And I think you see the manifestation of that. You've got fresh players and he's got great changes on the bench. It's coming together at the right time is always a bit precipitous to say that, but this full clear week we've got because of the dead rubber, and then the week after, as you said, the week after that full clear week, it's an 8-day gap actually. It's almost too long because you look away, they begin to concertina. It does get to a point where you scratch your head. I don't know if you were aware of the little spat between Gary Neville and Jurgen in the week, where Gary Neville was going, what the fuck is he talking about, more or less? This isn't that many more games than it was this time last year, and it's come on the back of them being out for months with COVID. And I don't want to back Gary Neville over the greatest Liverpool manager of all time, but he sort of has a point, and you look at it begin to ease now, and you think, it's not so bad. We have more injuries than anyone else, and that's another conversation, but I'm not sure the schedule's been as terrible as has been suggested.
Completely disagree with you, but John.
Well, you'll have to prove it.
Well, I will prove it with. Well,
I know the data.
The core issue is that they haven't had pre-seasons, and the fitness wasn't right when they came back from lockdown, and this is why there's an increased number of injuries across all levels of the game, in every single division and across the continent.
I've been through the Premier League's injury list at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a great website, I can't remember what it's called, PremierLeagueInjuries.com or whatever. Yeah, there you go, something like that. And I was going through them, I thought, because this has been a bit of a mantra, they're all over the place. I thought, okay, let's just have a little look. How many City got at the moment? Because I know Aguero's a bit dodgy. Aguero, that's it. Chelsea weren't even on the list.
Yeah, but when we played City, they had 13 out.
They didn't have 13
They had 13 out.
No, they didn't. They were able to put their main men on the pitch. Okay, that day.
They didn't have a bench.
All right, that day. We're going now, and this should be cumulative, it should be at its worst now. Liverpool had on that list about 11 players, most of whom weren't even close. Spurs had Kane, maybe, who actually played. City had Aguero, maybe. Chelsea
and Ndombele didn't play. There were more injuries over the weekend. Lads were pulling up all over the place.
They're not at our level. I don't care what you say. They're not at our scale. We'll pull it out afterwards.
No,
we'll arm around each other and I'll show you.
What I'm saying in general is you're saying effectively you're saying Gary Neville's right and our manager's a twat.
I'm saying it's not black and white. It's not that black and white. Don't you put that in my mouth.
What I'm saying is that the issue's been all the way through that they haven't had a pre-season, that they have to have the intense games. Yes, we got the 2 League Cup ones early, but normally you get the League Cup ones that can come in as a break if you're not still in the League Cup. That's not been in for them in this run. They've had to go to the well over and over and over again, and that's every team. Every team's had those competitive matches. It's just that now, because the Champions League's about to disappear and everyone's broadly got through, with the exception of United, it just looks a little kinder. You can't say now, oh, actually, what was all the fuss about?
I can, because I actually thought it before.
I know you did, but that's because you're an absolute head case around them playing as many games as possible, and you literally did a show about that in the summer.
That's me. There's a difference between me enjoying that and me not acknowledging that it might destroy footballers and their health. Look,
And it has.
We had 5 weeks pre-season, and most of the time our lads come back from World Cups and have barely 2.5 weeks. They'd had a mini season where they played 9 games, after which they'd had 4 months off. This is an unprecedented amount of time off.
This is the issue, but the time off's not controlled, and what everyone's doing is going, they had ages where they just had the feet up.
No,
they didn't know what was
working,
going on. They didn't know what was going on. I think the complacent attitude towards it's part of literally injuries have been up. There are surveys where injuries are up. Just because you've took a snapshot and looked at one website in one weekend doesn't change that.
Ours are worse than everybody's. This is not even a debate. Ours are worse than anyone else in the league.
Ours
by a factor of 2 at least.
Ours have been worse than everybody's, but everybody's had injuries, and they're going to continue to have injuries, and it has been worse than it is year on year, and it will continue to be worse than it has been year on year.
We'll take a snapshot in about a month and we'll see where we are.
3 players went off injured, I think, in Burnley Everton.
That doesn't prove anything. That's anecdotal. I've given you the entire... I'm not going to argue anymore with you on this because I've showed you my work.
Honestly, there was an article in that soft tissue injuries a month ago were up 42% year on year.
Worthy. Send me the link.
I will do. It was on The Athletic. Talk about something else because I'm going to kill him.
You just want me to say you're right. Great. You want me to say you're right and fold. I don't think you're right. You don't think I'm right. We'll agree to differ.
I just think that I'm going to take the side of the greatest Liverpool manager ever over Gary Neville.
I'll resort to authority, the lowest device.
No. I'll resort to the fact that Gary Neville's a mank twat.
We'll agree to differ, shall we? Let's agree to differ.
Go on.
Gary Neville was very nice about you actually as well.
He's all right, annoyingly, isn't he? If we're all sound,
yes,
he's actually all right.
That's the problem.
I'm hoping we've come through it now, and I'm hoping where you see it in terms of what we're got coming back in, and that's not to say there won't be sort of more injuries and things like that, because obviously there can be, but you just hope that with the other side now, and there's obviously a couple that feel closer who weren't on the bench as well, and I think the other sides in the Premier League who aren't in Europe are in for a bit of a shock in this one, because they probably, like Rob, go, well, what's all the fuss about? Because we've played 5 Champions League games, and so they've had these 9 weeks off, and they're like, what are these, what's going on? This is great. Do you know what I mean? And now it's going to be, the Champions League gets put to bed for a bit, and then it's filled with league games, and so I think the teams who we've got coming up, the likes of West Brom, Burnley, who are playing soon, their intensity will have to drop, I think, because they're going to be sort of playing much more, and they won't have the big breaks that they've been having. So I think that's going to be an interesting period for them. But with Liverpool, we're just ticking on nicely, I think, and we're starting to pair a little bit more as well. And I just loved watching us last night, because as soon as we went 1-0 up, they just looked like there was only going to be one result, and that's great. And obviously we get the scare just before half time by our diving from Ray and Hill. But
have you seen the can I ask you something about the VAR on that, because we have to do VAR check though. I was in the ground, and I couldn't, obviously you can't tell what's actually going on, and then I've seen a number of angles of it, and clearly Sadio brilliantly pulls his leg away and it's nowhere near. But when the footage I've seen of what the VAR, the ref sees on the monitor, is the hardest one to tell. It makes you go, shit, that was a marginal. Good on the ref for getting that. But you always go, he could have grazed him there.
No, it showed it on the telly. He's seen the 2 angles.
Did he?
He's
good. That's a relief to me.
Yeah, they cut to that 1 second. He did have another one first.
Yeah, because one of them is like, no, and one of them is like,
Yeah, but it's the right results, isn't it? And then second half, they just went through them, and there's so many good goals in there, and so many pleasing goals and moments. I love the Matip one for the Salah cross. It's just phenomenal. It's obviously nice for him to score the last one. It's great to have Trent back on the pitch whipping those balls in. It's almost unplayable. You feel sorry for the defenders because you're like, well, what is he supposed to do?
Yeah,
and that's so great. And so we've just got so many weapons in our armour, and that's without some of these players who are going to come back over the next few weeks. That it is looking great for Liverpool, and other teams can get excited all they want and talk about starts and strike forces and best strike partnership for 50 years at Tottenham, isn't it? I mean, fucking hell.
Like Gary Neville was on that one big time. List of things Gary Neville's getting wrong.
Yeah. I mean, all the best.
Call back gag.
We'll see. Harry Kane will break down. He'll get injured.
Yeah.
Harry Kane. He's determined that that game started. We watched it together, didn't we? And we could hear the commentary, and often you can't. And like Neville was determined to say that Kane was the best midfielder in the country, and by the end of it, Martin Tyler was determined to say he was the best centre half. They went on one hell of a journey.
After the half time, he'd completed 2 passes.
Yeah. Admittedly, one of them did lead to the goal, but even that was, you know, the lad carried it 35 yards and then put a top in. And it was brilliant. It was a great goal. Did anyone have Big Jolie in Will Go Most Berserk in front of the fans sweep? I didn't.
To be fair, he's got a wild card in him, hasn't he, Joe? Look, as Big Mad Walker tell you that enough, won't we?
He's got a goal in him, Joe Matip, quietly, hasn't he?
He's a big old lump, isn't he?
Yeah.
To be fair, and you put
some big headers both ends of the pitch.
Yeah, you put a cross in like that as well, and it's, do you know what I mean? I could have scored that header. It was such a fantastic ball into the danger area. You can see the goalie going, "What am I supposed to do with this?"
You don't get as many runs into the net as you used to, and it was a belter for that. I thought, runs
and without collecting the ball either.
They're normally so much more controlled than that. The footballers, Jolie headed it, made sure it had stayed headed, and hit the back of the net with the ball, which
he's like a baby giraffe anyway. He's fucking lolloping around.
Yeah,
you know the goalie's got to get out of the way, hasn't he? Because he's going to get savaged if he.
It's on that. We'll talk about the centre halves in a minute, along with the central midfielders. That's where I want to focus in on today. But just dead quick, it did feel, Rob, like a first goal game. Yeah, it's an error for the goal. It's an unerring finish. It really is. It might not have been in the end. You know, there's the good use of VAR. There's the reaction of the players around that. There's also second half. The centre halves. Fabinho comes across when it drops for Cody.
Oh, what a clearance!
It was a great clearance, but it did always feel a little bit like if we score first, we will go on and win it, like John said.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, I'm of a nervous disposition watching Liverpool and have been for 40 odd years. Never getting less nervous. But that very much felt done at 1-0, didn't it? I mean, I suppose the scare before half time did remind you, but coming out into the second half, you knew we were going to pick our way through them. We looked very, very, very focused. I've watched that Conor Cody thing over and over again. I'm still trying to get in my head what the fuck he's trying to do. Does he think he's just going to do a cute little chest to the side and play football and get them out on the counter? It's just mad. It's the sort of thing Virgil would get wrong once in every 3 seasons. But you go, well, Virgil had the right to do that. God, you think, Conor, come on. I know you're playing for England now, but Jesus, that was stupid. No, someone like Salah literally hiding under your armpits the entire game.
He has a funny night, Cody. It is a big error, and you can see straight away he knows it. Then he goes on and there's the VAR thing when he won't look Henderson in the eye, which I think's really interesting. Like he almost
wants to get out of there, doesn't he?
He really does, as Henderson's trying to grab him. The reaction of the players, I thought, around the VAR was really, really interesting. In that you don't normally see that many Liverpool players, and then the number of them that decided their option was to laugh their heads off. I also liked, you know, it did look pretty, it looked intense, they were certain, but also I think I got a little bit of an impression that supporters being back combined with maybe they've just had enough of this.
A little bit, yeah. I think it is always funny when it's a big centre half diving in it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, come on, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just that sort of bit more ridiculous. Like you, the fellas who are meant to be moaning about this. The game's gone. Conor Cody. I'm sure I've seen that as a headline.
From the stand, it looked Stonewall.
Well, I thought it was Stonewall.
Yeah, on the telly, definitely.
And I was like, that was a pen, and Ben was like, nah, it's not a pen. That, and I was like, are you sure? But then the reaction suggested there was something in it.
It did remind me that your VAR experience in the ground is different. You sort of, because it just, I don't know what it is, but as it happened, the penalty's given, and there is a moment where you think, they're just fucking giving that. Where's VAR? And with the telly, you can go, where's VAR? Where is VAR? And on telly, here's our VAR, we will be taking you through stuff. So on the telly, you're sort of calmed about it. In the ground, he goes, oh, there's the VAR. So from nowhere, the ref seemed to be going to look at the monitor, and we weren't sort of aware that we were building to that moment the way you get on the telly. It was a strange thing about the sort of the spectre of it, sort of not quite being as the way it is when you're seeing it on TV. It was an odd what's the word?
Reassertion.
Yeah. It was better actually, because when the goals went in as well, you didn't feel the pressure of not being able to celebrate. You just go, I'm fucking celebrating. Whereas on the telly, you know the telly are going to take you to the doubt straight away. Don't you celebrate this? Take this away from you.
We're going to have a look.
The telly's the minute a goal's gone in, the telly's going, whoa. And it's just...
across the board with Cody, and with Cody having the sort of evening that he has, and we've referred to a couple of things being indefensible. Indefensible makes it sound like somebody did something awful, like the Trent ball is indefensible. Doesn't quite sound right, but very difficult to defend. But I think it really made me appreciate our back three, the goalkeeper and the 2 centre halves. And one of the things I appreciated with all 3 of them was they just have a lot of calmness. I think that's what Kelleher has brought in particular that's different to Adrian. Obviously, Alisson Becker will get back at some point, Kev. But calm is the thing that I took from watching them last night. There wasn't really a bit where I felt they were particularly riled, and even stuff where Fabinho has to be a bit last ditch coming across to knock it away from Cody. He even manages to do that in a pretty cool way.
Yeah, them two playing at centre half, they are, as you say, just totally. They look unflinchable, don't they? There's no panic in them. I don't think Joe Matip would panic if his house was on fire. He's that type of fella. He's just one of them. And Fabinho's such a fantastic footballer. He could play in goal. There's just no doubt about it. The one that I thought had not the best game, but the one who sort of stood out was the goalkeeper, because everything he just done with such surety. Like everything that Adrian has sort of caused issues with, where you think, fuck, what's he going to do with this? He just didn't. He just dealt with it. The save, the one that I think it's off Moutinho, where it's sort of looping over him.
Pedence.
What a cracking save that is. His feet, his footwork's fantastic. He just gets right across the goal and just deals with it. He doesn't panic.
There's a lot of keepers in the country who wouldn't make that because they would panic and the feet wouldn't be right.
That's too early or something.
That's exactly right. And he just doesn't. He come out for a couple of crosses, and he just, everything he does with the look of a man who's like, I'm the goalie, this is just what I do. There's no surprise in him, and I think obviously that then how often do you say panic transmits itself into a defence? I think the calm from the goalkeeper, especially with him being the one that they'll all be having a look at, you can imagine him after the game going, "Oh, you were fantastic there, brilliant," and the fact that he's the first line of that calmness, and it just radiates out through the team, then just sets us off on a really good way.
He comes for things in quite an interesting way, I think, John, in that he's not huge. No one's acting like he is huge, and yet there's a cross that comes in, for instance, that he chooses just to tip behind for a corner because it's the easiest thing to do. He deals with it, and I get the impression that may well be his brief from the goalkeeping staff and the manager is just come for things, just deal with things, and then we'll deal with the next bit when it comes in. You know, it's fine to concede the corner in that instance because we'll just deal with the next corner, and if we keep doing that, we'll be all right.
Yeah, but the one he takes at the end is great, and it's full stretch, and I like the way he uses his full scale of his body. Sometimes we've had keepers in the past, and you think like you're 6'6", and you must be like 7 foot with your arms up, and where is this? Are you getting beat by some fella jumping up, Ian Marshall or something's had you off again? Sorry,
one for the teenagers there, and also psychological scar to go back years.
I had a shudder there. But we've had keepers in the past where they seem to make themselves so smaller, but I think he's like a basketball player, isn't he, in terms of his stature and his shape, but also the way they sort of jump up and seem to be able to stretch themselves out and use the kind of the full kind of length is something similar with him, really, and that catch at the end, and he is calm as you like, as you've all said, so relaxed about it. Oh, this is what I do. Oh, they've just knocked that up. I'll just go and grab it, lie down for a bit, and then just boom it up, and we've won, innit? And it's just great. And it's just, I think he's doing so well, and like you've got to give praise. We give a lot of praise to the manager about how young players have come in. You've got to give praise to Achterberg, I think, in terms of the work he's done with him, because when I was watching him last year, I never thought, this is a potential Liverpool keeper. Do you know what I mean? You think, he's a decent young lad, he'll end up somewhere, you'll see him in Rochdale in a few years, and that's fine. Do you know what I mean? But now you're like, this kid, like, you know what I mean? He could do anything in the game, and that's brilliant. And so fair play to the work they've done on him, on his confidence, on his shot stopping, on everything really, because he seems to have sort of every aspect of the game you need to be a top keeper.
The only thing that surprised me, because having seen him a lot on TV, but not on the flesh before, is he's a small goalkeeper. I don't know what his height is. He felt maybe it's because he's young and he's small in frame. But as you say, somehow he's using his physicality, like flying across the goal and getting up to touch things. I wonder, my only reservation, it's got nothing to do at all with the lad's ability. He's the anti-Pickford, if I'm saying he's a small goalkeeper. But he didn't seem to fill the goal very effectively. No, he did if he filled it effectively, but he's not physically very big. But he's only, 19, isn't he? Still could have a bit of filling out in him. But having said that, the tools he's got, the calmness is everything. Being a keeper is as much about knowing what common sense actually means on a football pitch, I think, as anything else. As you said, you give the example of the flicking one over the bar, the knowing when to come and knowing not to. I think his footwork is just another level. I mean, there's not so much yesterday, but the previous game, I thought that's as good as Alisson's, and Alisson's lauded worldwide for this. I think he's an incredible young goalkeeper.
The fact that you can't tell whether he's left-footed or right-footed when he's kicking as well, he can use both feet and he can boom it when he needs to, but he can be accurate as well with a ping into the midfield. And that's something a lot of young goalies, it's a real struggle to try and teach a goalkeeper how to kick properly. It sounds like a mad thing to say for professional footballers, but there's loads of goalkeepers who can only bang it as hard as they can. They've got no sort of control over where they're putting it, and he's got that with both feet.
Are we about to see something, or have we been seeing something, as John said before, that you don't often get to see at clubs like Liverpool, Kev, which is the development of a young goalkeeper? We see development of young players all the time. We've watched Curtis Jones as a really good example go on a journey. We've seen Trent Alexander-Arnold, but I think you don't get to see the development of young goalkeepers because you sort of just want the finished product because you're Liverpool and this is what you're trying to do. And I'd like things like where Rob says there about filling out, but also, you know, he could have been taught and could also just have developed a better spring because of the age that he's at. And what we've done, or what you do, is you just sort of think, with keepers especially, they are what they are and they turn up. Whereas what we are actually getting to see here is that goalkeepers, like every other part of the pitch, they mature.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, I don't want to say he's going to turn out to be Liverpool's next great goalkeeper because that's a lot of pressure to put on him. And he's also playing he's playing number 2 now to the best goalkeeper in the world. The good thing he's got that goes in his favour, good thing isn't it? It's not really a good thing, is Alisson is relatively injury prone for a goalkeeper, it would seem. He's missed a lot of games, hasn't he? And Kelleher probably looking and thinking, Adrian got, 15, 20 games last year, something like that, to win a Premier League. So the development of a goalkeeper can stall if he's sat on the bench doing nothing for 12 months. You can coach and coach and coach and coach. But then in a game, when a ball comes over, like that one yesterday where he comes out, he's initially going to claim that ball, he's going to try and catch it, realises mid-flight he's not in the right position, so he puts it out for the corner. Stuff like that only comes with playing games. And at Liverpool, he's obviously got the coaches there because we're doing really well with goalkeepers in general. But it looks likely that he'll get the games, and he's certainly going to be getting all the cup games from now on, you would have thought. And
he's going to get Wednesday night. He's going to get.
We'll get the FA Cup game against Aston Villa, won't we? And unfortunately, it's unfortunately for us as a club as a whole, but fortunately for him, you wouldn't think that Alisson will go through the rest of the season without missing a game through injury as well, which is a mad position to be in with your goalkeeper. But now I wouldn't be devastated to see him in a big game either.
Okay. I want to talk about a pair of Liverpool legends, John, and I think it is time that sort of stuff is put about. Henderson and Wijnaldum, they were terrific. They dominate the game, to be quite honest with you. They take it away from Wolves. Wolves have got some vaunted players. I like Dendoncker when I see him. Moutinho's been an exciting player across Europe for years. Neves is someone people have repeatedly said Liverpool should be looking into. The game belongs to Henderson and Wijnaldum.
Yeah, they're great. And Henderson, he just keeps going to the well this season, doesn't he? And keeps producing for us. And I made a slight joke on a podcast a couple of weeks ago saying, you're getting a Alonso 0809 vibes, in terms of, the last season. And
you mean Wijnaldum, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Wijnaldum talking about, for Alonso. And it's not really a joke anymore, is it? It is that, it might, if it is his last season, then, he looks like he's going to leave everything on the pitch for Liverpool. And, it's a brilliant finish, isn't it? And just shows what he can do. And obviously we get a bit jealous when we see all the goals, he scores for Holland and things like that. But that was a little, insight into what he can do for Liverpool when he's allowed to get forward. It's a really good run as well. He sees the space, he asks for it and then brings it down. And obviously the finish is brilliant. But his all-round play, his determination and just the relentlessness of him, really. He's been our only fit midfielder at certain points, do you know what I mean? He's just like, don't worry, I'll go. And having Henderson back's absolutely massive, in terms of the drive he gives the team, the leadership, his talent as well. I saw some stats, from the game, he was number one at a lot of things, in terms of his use of the ball, but also the work he does kind of off it as well. And he's just developed into this fantastic leader at the side, isn't he? That we do miss him when he isn't there, but to focus on the positives when he is there, he always puts in a big performance, and yesterday was another one.
I thought Curtis Jones' movement helped Henderson and Wijnaldum a lot, and I thought they were superb. But he was dropping into pockets which was panicking the Wolves midfield. They weren't really sure where they were meant to be at times. And if you look, Jordan Henderson actually gets 2 assists there. I mean, it's a stretch of an assist to Gini Wijnaldum's goal, but he does get us out. And it's his ball. I don't know, is it a Conor Cody assist or a Jordan Henderson but it's Jordan Henderson's ball that sort of panics Cody in the first place. So. But Henderson has time to look up. I thought he was fantastic, and he drives us forward, and he sets our tempo. And Gini was sensational. They both were sensational. I think it's worth saying that as a unit, my point is this: as a unit, with Curtis Jones doing what Curtis Jones does, it's a really potent little combination of three. Then
the two play in front of the back four a little bit more. Kev, you said before about how we're defended a bit differently, looking after the ball a little bit more. But I think the other thing that we've done, because of the situation with the central defenders, and I think it happened a little bit more last season than we talk about when Fabinho got injured as well. So Fabinho's not injured at the minute, but he's playing centre half, and I feel as though Henderson, when that happens, I think it's a little bit more of a 2 and a 1 than a 3, if you know what I mean. And I think that Jones got to be the 1 a little bit last night, although he does fill in very, very well, and as Rob says, he causes problems. But those two do look after a lot of that sort of that space.
Yeah, that I think for a lot of midfielders, they'd be like, "Fuck's sake, I've got to do this job again." If you ask, like, there's no other midfielders in the league where you go, they'd love to be doing that job, the job of the two in front of the defence. Normally, they'd be like, I want to push on a little bit further, and I want to be doing, even the likes of a Kante, who you would think of as a defensive midfielder, they play defensive midfield without being defensive midfielders. They play it as almost like a sort of midfield sweeper, just where they know they're going to get the ball, and the passing and the touch is just exquisite. There was one Henderson done towards the end of the game yesterday where he got the ball, fed it out wide, and then made the run, and the ball got absolutely pinged into him, and his touch on the run was just like, wow, you thought it was unbelievable, and it sets us off on another attack. And those two, they're the type of players a manager must just go, thank you, Lord, for these two, because they play all the time. They do whatever job you ask them to. They never stop running, and they're both leaders. Now, the job they do in front of the back four allows us to lose the two best centre-halves in the league, probably, and then keep more clean sheets, because they've said, okay, well, do you have to play a different type of game now? Okay, you just tell us what we need to do, and we'll do it. So to have players that are that good, but are also that coachable, I think is really rare.
There's a sense here, and we don't do nostalgia very much at the moment because this is a great Liverpool side, but when you do your all-time 11s or all-time 11 that I saw, or etc., it feels to me like Henderson and Wijnaldum will always just sort of miss out for people a tiny little bit. There'll always be, you'll remember the romance of Alonso a little bit more, or the dramatic last-ditch sliding tackles of Mascherano. You'll also have somewhere in your mind, John, the idea of what, for instance, Alonso and Mascherano went on and did, because they arguably both become better players once they leave Liverpool, and it is worth sort of remembering that. Obviously, Gerrard is Gerrard, but the fact of the matter is, these are two footballers who powered the engine room of the sides that have won our first league title in 30 years and won a European Cup.
Yeah, and that has to be respected. And I think it's funny, isn't it? Because for a while it was, when you talk about this Liverpool team, and we probably did it a little bit as well. You'd laud the defence, Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, what they did, obviously the full-backs, and you talk about the front three, and then it was all, and there's some lads who playing in midfield as well. But I think what they've done in this period, just shows how vital they are for this team, really. In that, some of the defences we put out this year have been
wild.
Yeah, exactly, wild. Like, you know what I mean? But they protected them. They've done the job. I said, don't worry. You know what I mean? You don't worry, Reece Williams. You're not going to have that much to do, because I'll just sort all this in front of you, and they won't even be able to get the ball anywhere near that fella up front. So don't worry about it. You see in the Leicester game, for example, all the talks about Vardy, what he might do against our defence, he's not, no Van Dijk, no Gomez, who's he going to be up against, what's he going to do? He didn't get a kick, and the reason he doesn't get a kick is not because he was defended brilliantly, although you got to praise them. It's because of the midfield and what they're doing, and they're stopping any balls coming to him, and they're just shutting down the game. I've run out of times to Evertonians have told me that the people haven't played well against us. There was another one last night. Our Wolves were rubbish.
Wolves didn't turn up, did they?
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Same as Leicester the other week. Yeah, what keeps happening? Chelsea were rubbish against us. And it's these lads who are making very good footballers on most occasions look pretty average, and they're doing that. And I think this season, they've really shown the strength and the worth to this team, really, because there's been times when we've not been far enough, done quite well. We want to, and there's times, as I say, when the defence, it's been like, well, who's around and who can play, but they've won games for us from that engine room, and yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Do you know why the more I was thinking about this? Whelan McMahon, that's you going back, who also wouldn't get into many first defo all-time 11s.
But we're past the 87-88 team that started the season and went 29 games unbeaten.
Yeah, one of the most fluid Liverpool teams, most easy on the eye. But it would diminish them with faint praise to sort of say that they were workmanlike, because they were no less workmanlike than Wijnaldum or Henderson. Enormous amount of flair and brilliant technical footballers. I mean, I think if you look at some of the Alex Ferguson's great sides, whereas there are those Scholeses and Beckhams, there's also like a Carrick-Fletcher partnership virtually for a while, something like that. Some really sort of economical partnerships, and I think. Yeah, it's no accident. You look a lot of that around. I think that's actually what great sides have in them, is those players who do provide platforms. They are. The mad thing for us is they're getting better. That's the mad thing.
We'll come on and talk about Wijnaldum's contract in a minute. I just want to talk about one other thing, which is the idea, Rob, of how hard, and you got to see it in person last night, so I am really interested in this, how hard we are to play against. As an example, Mane gives Sadio a torrid time. Sadio, whose experience of Anfield was Barcelona as well, let's remember that too. He gives him an absolutely torrid time, and the own goal's almost symbolic of it, really. Like as John said before, the ball's unreal, but it's like Samedio's just trying to deal with this fella who's been doing his head in all night in the ball. You know what I mean? You can understand Sadio at that point, just like, yep, that was coming, because Mane just makes his life awful.
Yeah, I'm still not having it. That's an own goal. In old money, in old money, Mane gets.
Feels like one of our lads should get it.
Yeah. Mane definitely gets the touch somewhere in that mix. And Samedio's not ever getting it out of that net at any stage. I hate that. No, serious beef I've got with football, that it looks to find the own goal where it can. I think, why not have the positive stats? Sadio doesn't want that. He really doesn't want to. No, he did. He pinned him down. We've said this before. Again, he was the focal point all the time, because. He's such a bridgehead, isn't he? Whatever Klopp referenced his control after the game, because he was doing things, controlling footballs in ways I've never seen done before, something words to that effect. And you go, yeah, he was having balls pinged into him hard with 3 men on him, and sort of getting them under control whilst pirouetting and whilst getting himself into position to then play a pass. I thought he was unbelievable.
His physicality is really interesting. So, for instance, within that is when he manages to pull his leg back, which is just unreal, because his leg is very present and then he pulls it back. But he must just be, I can't quite get my head away from, Salah's incredible, and Salah, could be genuinely one of the best footballers ever to play for Liverpool. Mane's he's just this series of constant challenges. He's smarter than you are, he's faster than you are, he's technically incredible, he can do berserk things with his body. Playing against him, and I thought it was really interesting that Traore, for instance, ends up having to do a lot of work to support his fullback, when the theory was we should be scared of Traore.
I watched it on Premier Sports, the Irish one, and I can't remember who the commentator was, but he said, you look at Adama Traore and they're all going on about how big he is and how strong he is, and he said, There's no way he's stronger on the ball than Mane. Mane is as strong as him easily. The one where he wins the free kick in the second half, where he's got about 46 players trying to just kick him down.
They're all trying to foul him.
Honestly, but he's like an octopus. Like he's his feet are going everywhere. He's all round, and then he finally gets the ball off and gets the foul. What he gives to Liverpool is just, if we feel like, sometimes you think, it's only all Liverpool fans listening, so we all fucking love it, don't we? But some people must just think you can't have that many brilliant players, but we have, because you eulogise over the midfield, you eulogise over the goalkeeper doing really well. But Mane he's special. He's up there with John Barnes. I think by the end of his career, I do not say that lightly. I think John Barnes is probably top 5 Liverpool players of all time, and Sadio Mane gives as much to this team as probably Barnes did to the early Liverpool teams he played in. And again, he's another one that's only getting better. Every single week he does something with the ball, or he has a performance overall where you just go, fucking hell, where's he pulled that out from? And he's getting better and better with every game.
Yeah, he's boss, he's brilliant, and Kev's right to say, sometimes you feel like you can't be saying, this lad, but he's one of the extra special ones, and Kev's used that word special, and it's completely right, isn't it? We talk about footballers and what they're doing for us at the moment, and the performances they're putting in, and the consistency they're showing. But he's got that little bit of stardust on top, hasn't he, Manny? That just sort of separates him a little bit. And there's a few others. He's obviously not the only one, and that's why we are so lucky, as Kev says, to be watching this team at the moment. There's a few who've got that, little bit of extra special kind of something, but he is almost certainly one of them. And if people in other parts of the country don't think that, then more fool them, because he's going to make a fool of them eventually.
Something's being made, there's a little bit being made of this. He's on a bit of a drought, isn't he, with the scoring, but he's an example of players on a goal drought you don't worry about, because you just look, because he's you can't, the proverbial hat-trick he could have had last night. There's one he scuffs, he side foots, and he's unlucky with the
You also don't feel it tends not to interfere with his general form.
No.
Which I think it does for Salah. I think Salah needs to be scoring to feel like Mo Salah. Whereas you get the thing with Mane that he's as good as he can be in almost every possible moment, and it doesn't really matter whether he scored in that game or in general.
Yeah, I think, it used to be said of Bobby, so eventually they do need their goals, I think. But
yeah.
With Sadio, he's very unlucky to, on the last one, he's very unlucky not to have it. He's always getting shots away, and I never see that ever being a situation where he doesn't.
Let's have contract chat. Talk that they're going to extend Fabinho, give him a new deal, increase his money. That never happened for Gini Wijnaldum, and there's talk that Liverpool might return to the table with a contract offer. Rob, I do wonder on this, this is not the cold light of day. The cold light of day, this is the aftermath of an excellent performance from Gini Wijnaldum. He scored a goal, etc., etc. And people at the football club have to have the cold light of day head on and make these decisions, because right now I'm sure we give him all the money, everyone around this table.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a thing, isn't there, where we've talked about Henderson and Wijnaldum and their importance, but we also need to acknowledge their age. Same thing goes with Thiago. If you're going to extend Fabinho, he's a bit younger, but he's not that much younger. I do think that will remain the sort of sticking point, I think, for Wijnaldum and Liverpool. I suspect it's not the amount of money Wijnaldum's going to get a week. I think it's more the idea of how long the contract is where Liverpool and Wijnaldum possibly would need to come to some sort of arrangement.
At the end of the day, it's what the package is worth to a player in Casper. I thought, yes, you're right. In that sense, I did, listening to Klopp's post-match on the contract, I sensed a subtle sea change in that he sounded, one, optimistic, but more also like he wanted it to happen. I wonder, this is only just a theory, was there a point during the latter part, or maybe post-Christmas, looking at Wijnaldum, they study the metrics on players and the monitoring them physically, they went, you know what, we've had his best years. He's a fantastic footballer, he's had his best years, he's worth X amount, computer says X, but at the end of the day, if he wants to go and get a longer contract elsewhere, it's not going to be the worst thing for us. We will go on without Gini Wijnaldum. I just wonder, is his durability this season and his intensity throughout this injury thing, whether some of their thinking's changed a bit and they've gone, do you know what, he's got to fuck up. We've wet ourselves over getting Thiago in. This player is easily Thiago's equivalent if you think about it. Maybe the computer's slightly undervalued. I'm wondering if that's happening.
I reckon they've got all the data and they've gone, yeah, we've had his best years and okay, we're happy for him to go. And then he started playing this season and they've gone, someone check that data. If that all plugs in there on this computer. Exactly. I honestly think that they're looking at it going, we can't let him go. Because they can't let him go, obviously, but they must be looking at it going, fuck, it's a big gamble to let him go, because then we're going to have to replace him, which is going to cost a lot of money. And also the durability part in this season, as you said, Neil, with no pre-season, and effectively he's just played every game all the time at 110% intensity, and he just doesn't stop. I
wondered as well if the manager's always said, to talk about the data or the idea, but the thing the manager's always said is he doesn't like a big squad. And I wonder if maybe someone at the club might be saying to the manager, next couple of seasons, a big squad will just help you, because this isn't all going to write itself overnight. Loads of lads are going to go off and play Euro 2021. That's going to knock on to next season. Then Qatar's going to be a bit mad, and we've got to start anticipating that. I do sort of wonder whether or not, in conjunction with everything else that's being said, John, a couple of the conventional wisdoms of maybe just got a little bit challenged, and people are going, maybe. And there's something else in it as well, watching Lallana do punditry of one of our Champions League games, and I was sort of thinking, there's a thing that Jake Humphries isn't asking Lallana here, is they're having a big chat from the south of England, was whether or not you'd be getting a game now, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, if you were talking to Lallana there, you'd be saying, if you'd have just signed a new deal, you'd actually have got 6 or 7 appearances if you were fit enough. I do wonder if all this is in Liverpool's mind.
Yeah, I think so. And I agree with Rob. When I saw that Klopp interview, I thought that is a little bit of a different change stuff from what he has been saying, which has been very little. To be honest with you, he's been shutting it down. And he didn't have to do it then. I mean, he might have been all giddy, just done the fist pumps and all that. So maybe he was just, maybe a bit later on, he was like, I'll give them a bit too much on there. But he didn't have to. He could have just shut that down. He could have said, now's not the time to talk about it, which is pretty much what Gini did. But he never. He said, no, he pretty much put his colours to the mast, didn't he? Saying, I want him here. I want him in playing in for me. And I think he has reinforced his value this year. And I think, maybe they were thinking, well, Thiago coming in and you know, that's going to push him down. And I think they probably did identify it as an area where improvements sort of could be made, you know, sort of generally, really, how can we take this team to a next level? What is the next evolution? What's our next trick, if you like? And they've maybe started to realise or think a little bit more that the Gini can be part of that, however it is we want to play next time, that this guy's so, you know, so dependable, but also kind of so versatile, if you like, that he can do whatever it is we need him to do.
Midtjylland then.
Oh God!
No. I think you can maybe just rattle a little bit through. I think there's a fighting chance that Trent goes. And maybe gets 45. So Nico goes, Trent goes, and maybe there's a split on that one. You can expect Kelleher to start. Feel free to jump in at any point, Rob. I'll
jump in. As always, I think the manager. Yeah. There are certain people who are on the plane and who are starting if they're fit, and that's Origi and Tsimikas. You can name those two to start. Minamino. But you do wonder if Klopp will have a zero tolerance to compromising fitness policy, in which case you go, absolutely no way on Trent, no way on Nico. Nico's a first team player at the moment. I am not taking any risks because I might need either of them at the weekend. Origi, sound. You know, I do not need Origi for the foreseeable as long as nobody else gets injured. Tsimikas, sound as well. So I'm not sure whether he'll bounce. I mean, he's going to face Mo Salah going on his door saying, I fancy this, you know. I think Mo's just seeing Champions League hat-tricks and what have you, and he's going to have to go, no. So I could see him playing the under-18s. I really could. But having said that, under-18s enhanced by Tsimikas, Origi, you could make a case for Keita and Trent.
Minamino?
I'm sorry, Minamino. Sorry, I keep forgetting him. Yes, Minamino has not had enough minutes. He desperately needs those minutes. So, but beyond them, all of us with our knowledge of the youth teams, we've seen Kane and Clarkson there, but beyond him, I was trying to do it myself, and I think, in midfield, if you're not allowing Curtis to go and you've only got Keita, I'm thinking of a kid who I rate in the under-18s called James Balagizi, who I'd love to see if he could step up a level, but you're at the unheard of. I think Cometio could get a game.
Yeah, Cometio plays 45 at the weekend and then gets taken off, which suggests that he's been kept back for this. So you'd imagine he'll play centre off with Rhys Williams because it's Rhys's tournament and everyone else is just playing in it. So them two you'd imagine to play with Tsimikas. And I think he will go Nico Williams, and I think, you know, just because I think he could... You'd be thinking, well, Trent will be all right at the weekend, and I just sort of like for him to sort of keep it sort of going, really. The midfield is the interesting one because that's when you start to think, well, surely we can't ask Wijnaldum to go again. It seems
mad if Gini plays.
Or Jordan.
Yeah, or Jordan. Curtis, you know, if he's thinking, well, in a couple of weeks he's not going to be playing as much, you know, you might sort of kind of throw him in there.
Nearly injured the other week, though.
Yeah, but at some point, you know, it's a case where you do start moving down. I think. You know, Kane has obviously been on the bench, you know, obviously Leighton Stewart as well, so you sort of see them coming in, but Clarkson, sorry, yeah, I didn't mean Leighton Stewart, he hasn't been really around, but he might sort of feature him because he's been scoring goals for fun in the 18s. It'd be interesting if he goes, what he does with Jota, because Jota obviously doesn't play at the weekend, so whether he'd be tempted to say, okay, I'll throw Jota in with Origi and Minamino. But it wouldn't surprise me if he just leaves all four at home, to be honest with you. The only other factor is the 5 subs thing, which we obviously haven't got in the Premier League. There has, so you might see a couple where he goes, can you just do half each? And there's 4 senior players playing 45 minutes of football, and that's all sorted before. That might happen.
Sorry, can I just ask one question? Does anybody think there's an outside chance he gives this one to Pep Linders and stays home with Saturday's team?
I don't think he will for the Champions League. No. I think it's a bit of a political one that you're needlessly pissing UEFA off and Midtjylland.
Yeah,
so
true.
Why would you? You know what I mean? Like Midtjylland would feel a bit like, come on, play the game. And so I think it's like, does he want to piss off everybody in football? Because at the minute he's got you on his back. He's got the entirety of Britain's punditry class. He's got the FA. I bet you he's not that popular in the Premier League circles at the minute. Chris Wilder's got a dartboard with his face on, etc., etc. Does he really want to piss UEFA off as well? He might do. I mean, he doesn't give a fuck.
I'll tell you, piss off is actually, I suppose, although we're calling it, can Midtjylland catch either Ajax or they can't? No. So it's as dead as a robber gets.
Yeah.
Why are dead robbers dead robbers?
I think it's is it something to do with bridge?
Yeah, Robber in Bridge.
Yeah, and so like
why that's even there, I don't know.
It's one of the. I mean,
no
honestly,
Bridge,
there's people from overseas who listen to this show and they must find it hard enough at times. But without people lashing around the phrases "dead rubbers," they must think you're all mad. To be honest,
I never thought of that as being an English thing.
Yeah, we've got loads of mad things that we say.
It is to do with Bridge. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The 5 subs, I think, could be the bit of a game changer. That's why it wouldn't surprise me if there is. Maybe he does think, what does Alexander-Arnold need? Does he need the journey? Admittedly, because there is a journey, there's an overnight stay. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's true. But
all-inclusive, yeah.
Yeah, all-inclusive. But does he think that's worth it to put 30 minutes of competitive football in him? Or, I think those are the decisions he'll be making on a number of them. Kite is another one who you can say that of.
Yeah, they're like... Trent, I think, if we'd have needed him to, he could have played yesterday. He was on the bench, wasn't he, obviously? And also, you don't want to tempt fate, but he's durable, isn't he, Trent? So you'd think... Does he need the minutes? Probably not. Would he be able to have the minutes? Yeah, he'd be absolutely fine. I think Kate is probably one where he goes, fucking hell, I'm not risking you in Denmark in fucking December. That's just got disaster written all over it for me, so I wouldn't put him anywhere near it. I think the 5 substitutes possibly makes this harder for him than easier, because he's thinking, fucking hell, I can't literally have 17-year-old kids on the bench and then bring 5 of them on in a Champions League game. So that might mean a couple go. But it all just depends on fitness. I think he'll just say to the medical teams, who can do what? Okay, that's fine. We'll work on from that then. You
could ask Bobby and Jota to share the game, couldn't he? Just keep them ticking over half each. You could play it like a pre-season in that respect. A half each for them.
That's what I think. That's what I think you might see. That wouldn't surprise me.
I think the early kick-off is nice for us as well. In that we'll be certainly back that night, won't we? And not sort of
home
too
for
bad.
match of the day.
Yeah, home for match of the day. It's Sunday 4:30 as well, so that's not too bad. So the fixtures haven't fell too badly for us this week, really. So that might play on his mind a little bit too.
All right, it's been the Anfield Wrap. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Thank you very much to Rob, to John, and to Kev. Remember one thing: Gary Neville's sound, Rob Gutmann isn't. But nobody is sounder than Jurgen Klopp. See you later. No.